chemicals, ingredients, enhancements. For decades, the promise has been the same: more yield, more growth, more profit. The marketing was strong, the campaigns were polished, but the soil kept getting weaker, fields stripped, forests burned. What if the answers to today's problems aren't in another enhancement, but in God's creation itself?
I was a career farmer, and so we built this great empire. We were exporting fruits all over the world. Mammon got in the way of my walk with the Lord. But then in the year 2000, the Zimbabwe government were under threat from an opposition party for the first time ever, and the farmers became the scapegoat. So we were forcibly and violently thrown off our farms, and without any compensation, we had to leave everything behind. It was the farm the house that I had lived in my whole life. I'd never known any other house. Had farmed there very successfully. During this trauma, where we were faced with a scenario of we could fight, we could flee, or we could forgive. The vast majority of the farmers left the country, went to new pastures, but we figured that if you went to another country and you've still got your rucksack of bitterness on and vengeful thoughts, there's no country far away in the world where that rucksack's not going to stink. And so we chose what we felt was perhaps the hardest option. We were going to forgive. And it was how are you expected to turn the other cheek, and how do you feed your enemy, and how do you give your enemy water when he's hungry? And it didn't make sense. But the Bible says if you sow in your tears, you'll reap songs of joy. And so, again, that's a doing word. You have to sow. When you're in that state, you don't really feel like helping people. And that is when God opened a door for me to reconnect with Brian Oldreive and Foundations for Farming. So it started in Zimbabwe in 1982, where our founder, Brian Oldreive, sat down in virgin bush to solve the two problems of erosion and low yields and high costs. And he said, Lord, you're the master farmer. Teach me how to farm. And the Lord downloaded these two things to him, that there's no inversion tillage in nature. And secondly, that there's a beautiful mulch cover that covers the forest floor. So he went and emulated that, and he planted corn in a field that had just been combine harvested of wheat. And he did exactly what he saw in nature. And he immediately got that tenfold yield increment. So now he knew it works. In Zimbabwe, birthed in 1982, and the government took absolutely no notice of us, and we were a small little group. And then in 2019, we had had a very bad drought. And on Twitter, of all things, our permanent Secretary of Agriculture was scrolling through Twitter, and he saw somebody, it wasn't us, somebody had taken a photo of a dead crop of corn right next door to a really healthy crop of corn, and he got curious. And he asked, what is this? And the person said, well, it's Foundations for Farming. So he called me into his office, and he says, is this true? Does this really work? And I said, yes, we've been trying to tell the government for 40 years. He bought onto it. The Zimbabwe team on the ground were able to teach all the senior extension officers in Zimbabwe, who then cascaded out the training to 1.6 million hectares. Zimbabwe had never fed itself for over 20 years. That year, Zimbabwe fed itself for the first time. Their nation yields went up from 700,000 tons to 2.7 million tons. It was like a miracle. It's now like a national policy in Zimbabwe. But the reason it happened, and this is where we will always go. We will always go to where Jesus is working, and he's working with the least of his brothers. That's where. We tried to go to government beforehand, and they don't want to listen to you. They're too proud. So we go to the people in the village, the poor people. And then the government sees that, and now they want it. So it's like God's upside-down kingdom. We taught in over 40 countries in Africa. Wherever we were called, we went and taught. Dale Dawson with Bridge to Rwanda sent some of his graduates for training.
In Kenya, Rwanda, the word farmer is actually the word tiller. And so every season, people have been raised from their grandparents, their parents, that if you're a good farmer, if you're a disciplined farmer, you go out with a hoe and you turn over every square inch of your fields. They have to be able to see a plot where that soil didn't get turned over. We encourage them to come together in the community and watch us plant a plot without tilling. They laugh, they scoff at it, they tell us we're idiots, that don't we know that you can't get a crop if you don't till the soil. We want them to see it and talk about it. We show them that we do it, and then they have to watch for the next 3 or 4 months as that plot, our conservation agriculture, outgrows anything they're growing. We've planted 24 different crops in 3 different locations across the country, and that every single crop in every season, we have doubled or tripled the production of the average farmer in Rwanda. We use less fertilizers, we cut the amount of manual labor by 40%, and it completely stops soil erosion, which for a country like Rwanda is a major problem. The president immediately reacted, and over the next 4 years, we formed a partnership with the University of Rwanda College of Agriculture. They immediately said, let's test this all over Rwanda. And the country formally adopted in 2023 that they wanted to train every farmer in Rwanda in the practices of Foundations for Farming.
In September, we had our annual conference for our ministry in Poland. We invited as a good friend and a great speaker, Eric Sellerier.
I received a nice email from the president, and I shared that with a friend.
When I heard that Eric is having such a good relationship with the president of the country, who is willing to do something, and here I came back from CEF, and I listened to Craig talking about the Foundation for Farming, I immediately connected the dots.
Chuck Bentley and I were called to Madagascar to speak to the president. And we just offered our services. We said, you know, we are here. We do have this tool in our toolkit. Silver and gold we don't have, but we can teach a methodology.
The president really received it super well. And we took people, we chose 30, 35 people from Madagascar, and we sent them to Zimbabwe for a training in farming. They received this training in farming, but also in faith, in finances, and in family. They went back to Madagascar and they started to apply and to teach others.
The president has seen the success with the first trial models, and his heart is to train 1 million people over the next 5 years in Madagascar, and it could bring the 4th poorest country on the planet out of poverty.
Food insecurity across the world, particularly in Africa, is a major, major problem. And we have come together with people from Zimbabwe, from Madagascar, from 12 countries who all have a passion. They understand that this methodology works.
We've been friends and partnering with Craig Deal and Foundations for Farming for many years. And it's so gratifying and exciting to see what used to be just, people coming to a training center to receive this life-changing training now being rolled out across entire nations. And that took many years to develop.
Be faithful with what God's put in your hands, despite the opposition that might come. And it takes perseverance. And looking back, I realized that what happened in us, it was, if a man steals your farm, teach him how to farm. From that small beginning, we sowed, us as a family, we sow in our tears. We, even speaking to you today, is reaping those songs of joy, because God has opened up a whole new horizon for me. From where I was running a 3,000-acre farm, we now say that I once had a farm in Africa, and now Africa is our farm.